Hello, remote eighth graders. I'm back to read Act 3, Scene 4 of Romeo and Juliet today. So I'm going to read Act 3, Scene 4, and I'm going to read Act 3, Scene 5, because these are short ones. All right, so let's start with a little review. So in Act 3 so far, there was a fight in the streets. Mercutio and Tybalt fought, and Tybalt killed Mercutio. Romeo got in the way, and Tybalt stabbed Mercutio under Romeo's arm. Out of vengeance, Romeo then comes back and kills Tybalt, and the prince finds out and banishes Romeo from Verona. And if he comes back, he will be killed. In scene 2, the nurse told Juliet that Romeo killed Tybalt and Romeo has been banished from Verona. Instead of being mad that her husband killed her cousin, she's upset that Romeo is banished from Verona, and they still plan on spending their wedding night together. In scene 3, Romeo finds out about his punishment, which is being banished. He decides that he'd rather die than be banished from his Juliet. The nurse comes to give Romeo a message from Juliet. She still wants him to come spend the night, and Romeo will go spend the night with Juliet and then run away to Mantua and hide in the morning. And the friar will send Romeo's messenger with any messages to Mantua, and the friar and the nurse help them make this plan. So before I start, I'm gonna switch this one to 4 and 5, and we will take notes for both of those. Feel free to do that on yours as well. So let's finish up Act 3. So this scene is scene 4. This is inside the Capulet Manor. This is late at night. So Romeo has now left to go to Mantua, and we are back at the Capulet mansion, and Lord Capulet is there, Lady Capulet, and County Paris is there as well. In the back, you can see Capulet, and this is Paris. So this is not good because remember, Juliet is already married, and anytime Paris comes along, that means that he's going to ask for her hand in marriage. So we're going to start with scene 4. Enter Lord and Lady Capulet in Paris. So Juliet's parents in Paris are at the Capulet mansion, and they are talking. Things have turned out so unluckily, sir, that we've had no time to persuade our daughter. She loved her kinsman Tybalt dearly, and so did I. Well, we were born to die. 'Tis very late. She'll not come down tonight. Were it not for your company, I would have been abed an hour ago. So Capulet is talking to Paris, and he says that, the feud has gotten really bad, and there's been no time to persuade our daughter to want to marry you. Her cousin died. We've really been quite busy. She's very upset. She'll not come down tonight. He thinks that she is upset because Tybalt died, but in reality, Juliet is upset because Romeo has left. Paris answers by saying, "These times of woe afford no time to woo." And then to Lady Capulet, he says, "Madam, good night. Commend me to your daughter. Say good things about me." So he says, "These times of sadness, like, don't allow me to like flirt with her and woo her." And he says, "Say good things to her about me." Lady Capulet says, "I will, and I will know her mind early tomorrow. Tonight she's crying with grief. So she's going to ask Juliet tomorrow if she wants to marry Paris. We all know the answer to that, but they're going to ask again." Suddenly, Capulet makes up his mind about this and makes a decision. "Sir Paris, I can determine my child's love. She will be ruled by me in all respects. Wife, go you to her ere you go to bed. Tell her of my son Paris's love, and bid her, mark you me, on Wednesday next. But soft, what day is it?" "Monday, my lord." "Monday, ha ha. Well, Wednesday is too soon. On Thursday let it be." So basically, Capulet is making up his mind right here, and he's saying, "You know what? You can marry my daughter. I will allow you to marry my daughter." Capulet continues. Tell her that on Thursday she shall be married to this noble earl. He says to Paris, will you be ready? Do you like this haste? For we'll have no great ado, just a friend or two. So Capulet says, Thursday, I'm going to have Juliet marry you. And he says to Paris, are you going to be ready? Do you like that I did this quickly? He says, we'll have no great party, just a couple friends. He says, for Tybalt being so lately slain, it may be thought we do not honor his memory if we revel too much. Therefore, we'll have some half a dozen friends, and that will be that. But what say you to Thursday? He says, well, people will think we're, not considerate if we have too big of a party because Tybalt just died, our cousin just died. He says, what do you say to Thursday? Are you ready to marry Juliet on Thursday? Paris says, my lord, I would that Thursday were tomorrow. I wish that Thursday were tomorrow. Capulet says, well, get you gone. Oh, Thursday be it then. To Lady Capulet, go you to Juliet ere you go to bed. Prepare her, wife, for this wedding day. To Paris, farewell, my lord. It is so very late that we may call it early by and by. Good night. Exeunt all. So let's go back to our notes. Oops, wrong one. So I'm going to start the notes here for scene 5. So Capulet and Lady Capulet talk with Paris about Juliet marrying him again. Paris, actually, sorry, Capulet decides to have Paris and Juliet get married next Thursday. Make this decision without her consent. So Juliet's parents have decided that she is going to marry Paris next Thursday, which is still in the same week, and they make this decision without even asking her. So this is not going to go well. All right, so now we're on to this last scene. I know this is kind of a scandalous picture here, but this is from the movie that you guys are going to watch some clips of. So this is Act 3, Scene 5. Juliet and Romeo have spent the night together and they wake up. It's Tuesday morning and it's just before sunrise. So in this scene, we have Romeo, Juliet, the nurse, and Lady Capulet. So let's get started. All right, so Juliet starts and says, art thou going? It is not yet near day. It was the nightingale and not the lark that pierced thine ear. Nightly she sings on yon pomegranate tree. Believe me, love, it was the nightingale. So they just wake up and they've just spent the night together. You can see over here them together. And he needs to leave because he is not supposed to be there. And she says, it's the nightingale. This is a bird that hangs out in the nighttime. The lark hangs out in the morning. So she's saying, no, it's still nighttime. You don't need to go yet. He says, it was the lark, the herald of the morn, no nightingale. Look, love, what hateful streaks of light do lace the parting clouds in yonder east. I must be gone or stay and die. He says, I gotta leave or I'm gonna stay and die. Juliet says, yond light is not daylight, I know it. It is some meteor that the sun exhales to be thy torchbearer and light thy way to Mantua. Therefore stay yet, thou needest not be gone. She's like, please stay, please stay. Let me be taken and put to death. I am content if thou wilt have it so. I'll say yond grey is not the morning, 'tis but the pale shadow of the moon's brow, nor that it is not the lark. I have more will to stay than will to go. Come death and welcome, Juliet wills it so. How art thou, my soul? Let's talk. It is not day. So he's like, all right, I'll just basically stay and die for you. Juliet changes her mind. She doesn't want him to die. So she says, it is. It is the day. Hie hence, be gone away. She says, no, no, you need to leave. It is the lark that sings so out of tune, straining harsh discords to divide us. Oh, now be gone. More light and light it grows. Romeo says, more light and light, more dark and dark our woes. So they're basically like having trouble saying goodbye right now because they don't want to leave because he's banished and he has to go away. So they don't want to say goodbye. The nurse comes and she's going to warn Juliet that her mother is on her way to her room. Keep in mind, she's not supposed to have Romeo in her room right now. So the nurse is helping her out. The nurse says, Madam. Juliet says, Nurse. The nurse says, Your lady mother is coming to your chamber. The day is broke. Be wary. Look about. She's like, Get him out of here. The nurse leaves. Juliet says, Then window, let day in and let life out. She lets Romeo out so that her mother can come talk to her. Romeo says, Farewell, farewell, one kiss and I'll descend. They kiss. Romeo goes down the ladder and outside her window. So he has left now. Or actually, just kidding. In true Romeo and Juliet fashion, they don't say goodbye that quickly. So, first, we're going to have a little back and forth of, I love yous and when will I see you again and all this. Juliet says, Art thou gone, love, lord? I, husband, friend, I must hear from thee every day in the hour, for in a minute there are many days. Oh, by this count, I shall be old ere I again behold my Romeo. She's like, it's going to be so long before I get to see you again. It's terrible. Farewell. I will spare no opportunity to send my greetings to thee, love, says Romeo. Juliet says, Oh, thinkest thou we shall ever meet again? Do you think we'll ever meet again? Romeo says, I doubt it not, and all these woes shall serve for sweet discourses in our time to come. So all these sad things will serve as good conversations in the future, he says. Just before he leaves, Juliet says, O God, I swear I have visions of the future. Methinks I see thee now. Thou art so low as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. Either my eyesight fails or thou lookest pale. She says, this is a little foreshadowing here. She says, I think I have some visions of the future, and what I see is you dead. You look kind of pale, she tells him before she leaves him. Remember, this is the last time that they are probably going to see each other for a while. Romeo says, Thou lookest pale too. 'Tis sorrow that drains from the blood from our cheeks. Adieu, adieu. He says, we're just sad. We're so upset we're not going to be able to stay with each other. Then Romeo leaves. So now Juliet is upset that her, sorry, my dog is snoring next to me. Hey, stop. Juliet says, O fate, fate, all men call thee fickle. If thou art fickle, what wilt thou do with him who is so faithful? Be fickle, fortune, for if thou art fickle, thou wilt not keep him long, but send him back. So she's like, I hope I get to see him again soon. Lady Capulet now enters, and she is about to talk to Juliet about the wedding with Paris. Lady Capulet says, Ho, daughter, are you up? Hello, are you up? Juliet says, It is my lady mother who calls. Is she not asleep so late or awake so early? What strange reason brings her hither? So she's like, Why is my mother here? Like, what is she talking to me about? Lady Capulet now comes in. She says, Why? How now, Juliet? How are you? What's wrong? Juliet says, Madam, I am not well. Lady Capulet says, Evermore weeping for your cousin's death? What, wilt thou wash him out of his grave with tears? Thy crying cannot not make him live, therefore be done. Some grief shows much love, but much grief shows want of wit. So she says, You're still crying over your cousin dying. She doesn't know this, but Juliet's really crying because Romeo just left. She's just upset about her husband. She doesn't actually care about her cousin. Juliet says, Yet let me weep for such a feeling lost. She's like, Let me be sad. Excuse me. Oh, a little tired. Okay, let's keep going. We're almost done. Lady Capulet says, Well, girl, thou weepest not so much for his death as for that villain lives which slaughtered him. She says, You weep not for just his death, not for just Tybalt's death, but because the villain who slaughtered him or killed him still lives. You are upset because the villain who killed him actually still lives. Juliet says, What villain, madam? Lady Capulet says, That villain, Romeo Montague. She says, That the villain, Romeo Montague, the one that killed him. Juliet says, God pardon him, I do with all my heart, and yet no man doth make my heart grieve like he doth. So, right here, we have what's called verbal irony. Lady Capulet and Juliet are kind of talking around each other. So Lady Capulet hates Romeo, obviously. Juliet loves him. So Lady Capulet is talking smack about Romeo, and saying, "You're upset because he still lives." Juliet is saying, "My heart grieves for him." She's really saying, "My heart grieves because he's not with me, not because he killed my cousin." Lady Capulet said, "That is because the murderer lives." Juliet says, "Ay, madam, he lives just beyond the reach of my hands. I would that no one might avenge my cousin's death but I." So she says, "I wish that I could like be with him. I wish I could hold him. I wish I could avenge my cousin's death by being with him." Lady Capulet said thinks she's really wanting to like hurt him. In reality, she just wants to like be with him. Lady Capulet says, "We will have vengeance, fear thou not. Then weep no more. I'll send to someone in Mantua where that banished rogue doth live, who shall give him a poisoned drink, so that he shall soon keep Tybalt company, and then I hope thou wilt be satisfied." So right here, Lady Capulet is actually talking about poisoning Romeo. She wants to send a messenger with some poison to Mantua, where Romeo is, and she wants to poison him. Juliet, going along with her mother, and she's lying, says, "I know I shall never shall be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead." Then she adds the word dead. She just wants to behold him, not actually behold him dead. "Oh, and how my heart abhors to hear him name and cannot come to him." So she's saying, like, I want to go to him romantically and like be with him, and also double meaning, she wants to like get revenge. She doesn't really want to get revenge. She's just lying to keep her mom happy. Again, this is called verbal irony. So they're talking about Romeo, and then Lady Capulet says, "Anyway, I have joyful news for you." She's about to tell her about the wedding to Paris. Lady Capulet says, "But now I'll tell thee joyful news, girl." Juliet says, "And joy comes well in such a needful time. What is it, I beseech your ladyship?" She's like, "What? What happened? Like, what are you telling me about?" Lady Capulet says, "Well, well, thou hast a careful father, child. To pull thee from thy sadness, he hath created a sudden day of joy that thou expectest not, nor did I look for thee." So she says, "Your father has, planned something for you that is very exciting." Juliet says, "Madam, what day is that? What day are you talking about?" Lady Capulet says, "My child, early Thursday morn, the valiant, young, and noble gentleman, County Paris, at St. Peter's Church, shall happily make thee a joyful bride." So Lady Capulet says, "My child, on Thursday you will get married to the County Paris at St. Peter's Church, and you will be very happy about it." Juliet is not excited. She says, "I swear by St. Peter's Church, and Peter too, he shall not make me there a joyful bride. I wonder at this haste that I must wed ere he that should be my husband comes to woo. I pray you, madam, tell my lord and father I will not marry yet, and when I do, I swear it shall be Romeo, whom you know I hate, rather than Paris." This is news indeed. She's saying, "Why are we rushing to marry me off to a man who hasn't tried to win me over yet?" She says, "And when I marry, it won't be to Paris. It will be to Romeo, who you know I hate." She doesn't really hate him. But she said, she's telling her mother, "I would rather marry Romeo than marry Paris, who you know that I hate Romeo." She does not. So basically, she turns down her mother. Lady Capulet says, "Here comes your father. Tell him so yourself and see how he will take it." So this is not going to be good because Capulet really, he made this decision for her. So he's going to want her to do what he says. So Capulet says, "How now, girl, still raining tears for my brother's son? From thine eyes flow a river which shall drown thee. Wife, have you delivered to her of our decree?" He walks in and says, "You're still crying over Tybalt's death?" And then he says, "Wife, have you told her what the plan we've made for her? Have you told her about the wedding to Paris?" Lady Capulet says, "Ay, sir, but she will have none of it. She gives you thanks. I would the fool were married to her grave." So basically, she says, "I wish Juliet was dead." She says she doesn't want to marry him, and she's like fighting me on it. Capulet's going to get very mad about this because back in the day, you listened to your parents, especially if you were a woman and they arranged a marriage for you. And going against them, wasn't going to turn out good for her. Capulet says, "Soft, wait, take me with you, wife." "What? Will she have none of my command? Doth she not give us thanks? Is she not proud? Doth she not consider herself blessed, unworthy as she is, that we have found so worthy a gentleman to be her groom? So he gets mad and he's like, what? She's not proud. She's not thanking us. She's not considering herself blessed because we found such a man for her. Juliet answers by saying, not proud, but thankful that you have. I can never be proud of what I hate. She basically says, like, I can't be proud of what I hate, which I hate this arrangement. But I am thankful even for what I hate because it was offered with love. So she kind of talks back to her dad there, which is not going to go very well. And he is going to get very upset with her. He says, how? Mangled logic. What is this? Proud, and I thank you not, and yet not proud? You spoiled brat. Calls her some names. Thank me no thankings, but fettle your fine joints against Thursday to go with Paris to St. Peter's Church, or I will drag thee hither. He says, you are going to get married to this guy on Thursday, or I will drag you there. Then he calls her a spoiled brat, but then he says, out you disease, out you baggage, out you sickly face. He calls her all sorts of names. Lady Capulet defends Juliet at first and says, "Fie, what, are you mad?" So you can see Capulet in this picture yelling at Juliet. Juliet says, "Good father, I beseech you on my knees, hear me with patience, but to speak a word." She's like, listen to me, please listen to me. Lord Capulet continues getting mad, and he's going to go on a rant here. He says, hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch, I tell thee what, get thee to church a Thursday, or never after look me in the face. He says, get your butt to church on Thursday, or never look at me again. He says, speak not, reply not, do not answer me. My fingers itch. This means I want to hit you, basically. Then he says, wife, we hardly thought ourselves blessed that God had lent us this only child, but now I see this one is one too much, and that we have a curse in having her out on the harlot. He calls her some more names you can see over here and says, like, basically, we had one kid, and I actually wish that she was never born. So both of her parents are being pretty unfair, pretty terrible to her. All right, we've got a couple more slides here. So Capulet is freaking out on Juliet about not wanting to marry Paris. Juliet is totally refusing, and Capulet is going off on her and basically disowning her. The nurse interrupts to try to kind of defend Juliet, because remember, this is the closest person to Juliet. The nurse says, God in heaven bless her, you are wrong, my lord, to berate her so. So stop, like, criticizing her. I don't know why this actually says Lady Capulet. This is Capulet that says this. Capulet answers and says, why is that, Lady Wisdom? Hold your tongue. You old woman, go gossip with your friends. So she's like, he basically tells her to shut up. The nurse says, I speak no treason. Like, I just, I didn't say anything disrespectful. I just want to defend her. Capulet says, oh, in God's name. Like, he's annoyed. The nurse says, may not one speak? May I not speak and, like, defend her? Capulet says, peace, you mumbling fool. Utter your important thoughts or a gossiping lunch, for here we need it not. So basically dismisses the nurse. Oops. So Capulet dismisses the nurse and says, like, we don't want to hear from you, basically. We don't want to hear your opinion. Lady Capulet says, you are too hot. You're too angry. Capulet goes on another little rant, and he is upset with Juliet. He says, God, it makes me mad. Day and night, all hours, work and play, alone and with company. Still my focus hath been to have her matched. Like, all I've been trying to do is get her matched to someone good. And having now provided a gentleman of noble parentage, fair to look at, youthful and honorable, and then to have this wretched whining fool answer, I'll not wed, I cannot love, I am too young, I pray you pardon me. So he's like mocking her and getting mad about her response to his arranged marriage. Capulet continues to go on, and he says, and if you will not wed, I'll pardon you. Live wherever you will, you shall not house with me. Think on it. I do not jest. He's basically saying, if you do not marry this guy, I will disown you and I will kick you out and you will not live in my house anymore. He says, Thursday is near, and if you be mine, I'll give you to my friend. If you be not mine, then hang, beg, starve, die in the streets, for by my soul I'll never acknowledge thee, nor help thee in any way, believe me, I'll not be forsworn. So he says, Thursday is coming. If you're mine and you're my daughter, then I'll give you to my friend. If you're not mine, then you can go hang, beg, starve, die in the streets, and I will never talk to you again. This is very harsh. So Lord Capulet, or Juliet's father, just leaves in just total anger. Julia is so upset at this point, and she looks to her mother for some help. She says, "Is there no pity anywhere that sees into the depths of my grief? Oh, my sweet mother, cast me not away. Delay this marriage for a month, a week, or if you do not, make the bridal bed in that dim tomb where Tybalt lies." So Juliet says, "Please, mother, like delay this marriage. Please help me out." She asks her mother for help after this big blowout fight with her dad. Lady Capulet says, "Talk not to me, for I'll not speak a word. Do what thou wilt, for I have done with thee." So she basically disowns her too and says, like, you better, make the right decision or else I'm done. And right now I'm done talking to you. Lady Capulet then leaves. We've got two more slides here. Juliet, very upset, now turns to the nurse because she has nobody else to turn to. She says, "Oh God, how shall this be prevented? My husband is on earth, my marriage vows in heaven. How shall I make new wedding vows unless my husband leaves this earth?" So she's like, "How can I prevent this?" She says, "Oh nurse, comfort me. Counsel me, alack, alack, that heaven should scheme against so weak a subject as myself. What sayest thou? Hast thou not a word of joy? Some comfort, nurse." She turns to the nurse. She says, like, what do I do? Like, I can't marry again until Romeo dies because he's my husband now, and I don't know what to do. So, up until this point, these two were very close, the nurse and Juliet. But this is the first point that the nurse is going to kind of speak out about Romeo to Juliet. And she's kind of rooting for Paris in this. She says, "Here it is. Romeo is banished, and I'll wager the world that he never dares come back to claim you. Or if he does, it must be by stealth. Then, since the situation is thus, I think it best you marry with the Count." So she says, "I think it's best that you married with Paris. Oh, he's a lovely gentleman. Romeo's a rag compared to him." So she says, "You should marry Paris, and your husband is nothing compared to him." So Juliet's not going to like this. This is the first time they're really disagreeing and they're kind of separating. "Madam, an eagle hath not so green a had so fair a green eye as Paris had. I think you would be happy in this second match, for it excels your first. This second marriage is better than your first. Or if it does not, your first is dead, or 'tis as good as dead, with him living there and you having no use of him." So she basically tells her, you need to, forget about Romeo and you just need to follow your parents' wishes and marry Paris instead. Julia says, "Speakest thou from thy heart? Do you mean this?" The nurse says, "And from my soul too, else beshrew them both." She's like, "Yes, I really do mean this, or else, curse my heart." Juliet is upset because this is the first time that they have really disagreed. Juliet says, "Amen." Nurse says, "What?" Julia says, "Well, thou hast comforted me marvellous much. Go in and tell my mother I am gone, having displeased my father, to Lawrence's cell to make confession and to be absolved." So Juliet just decides, tell my mom I went to confess my sin of upsetting my father. She's not actually going to the friar to, confess her sin. She's going to the friar for some help out of this marriage. So she's lying yet again, some more verbal irony. The nurse says, "Mary, I will, and this is wisely done." So the nurse says, "This is a good idea." So the nurse leaves, and Juliet says, excuse me, "That damned ancient woman, O most wicked fiend, is it more sin to tell me to forswear my wedding vows, or to dishonor my lord with that same tongue with which she hath praised him with above compare so many thousand times? Thou shalt no longer be my counselor nor confidant." So she basically says, I will not talk to the nurse anymore. I will not tell her my secrets, and I will, not trust her anymore. She says, "Forget the nurse. If Friar Lawrence can't fix this situation, I'm just going to kill myself." So she says, "I'll go to the friar to know his remedy. If all else may fail, I have the power to die." So exit Juliet. So go back to your notes. We're going to finish scene four or scene five. So in this scene, let's see where we started. It was a while ago. It was a lot of slides. So Romeo and Juliet wake up together and um, don't want they don't want to leave each other. Um, Lady Capulet comes in to talk to Juliet about marrying Paris. Juliet denies the offer and then gets into a fight with her dad over it. Her dad insults her and disowns her, and I'm going to say tells her he will disown her if she doesn't marry Paris. Um, the say both her dad and mom want her to do this, as well as the nurse. Nurse and Juliet have a falling out, and Juliet goes to Friar for a plan to get out of marrying Paris. Okay, so Romeo and Juliet, recently Romeo's been banished. Um, they spent the night together. Now this new marriage is being arranged between Paris and Juliet without her consent. Juliet found out, got into a huge fight with her family over it, and they have threatened to disown her. And she's even had a falling out now with the nurse. So now we're on to scene or Act Four, and I'll be back next time to do the next scene. Thanks for following along and listening, and make sure you take your notes. They're right here, and reach out if you need any help at all. Thank you. Bye.